Mickey 17 is a movie that showed some promise in the trailers that I was actually a little interested in. And unfortunately, after having watched it, it fell pretty flat and was quite average to bad. Actually, no, I'd probably just call it bad. And a large measure of the, unenjoyment, the parts that are very difficult to get through, was Mark Ruffalo. He was utterly insufferable in this film by the clear and oh so desperate, Trump parody bullcrap that he was, pushing throughout. And I guess it wasn't him, it was everyone involved in it. But this film is very anti-Christian, very anti-Trump in the way that Mark Ruffalo plays. And even if you were to separate those parts, though, right, the film ultimately is bland, dull, fails at the finish line with no real, purpose or message to it. There was no point to this film. Now, Robert Pattinson does an all-right job in his performance, but there's not a lot for him to work with. One of the biggest failings of this film is that there's nothing to care about. Mickey, the main character, is an idiot. Genuinely an absolute numbskull. And there's no real redeeming, virtues to him. He's not a particularly noble, good, or honest person or anything like that. He's just an idiot that signed up to this horrific kind of program where, if you know the premise of the film, he is an expendable, therefore he purposely gets thrown into situations where he will die for certain goals, testing out a virus, testing out radiation on the outside of the spaceship, things like that, and they just reprint his body and he gets reborn. And is it really him? And then, the concept of the film is that a duplicate gets made, and there's slight conflict as to them coming to terms with it, but then it gets, completely, hijacked. The film takes a left turn into another plot, which also might have been interesting if they focused on it, but the film can't really decide if it wants to focus on the conflict between having two individuals that are, technically the same person, even though the film plays out that they're actually quite different people, significantly so. The duplicates that be made, and the kind of distraction plot where it's these humans colonizing this planet and they're coming across, an alien species and other thing like that, is also undermined by the fact that you don't really care about the humans. All the humans are absolute numbskulls. I don't think there's probably only two moderately intelligent characters, and of course that they're, female characters, because you can't have them to be depicted as too stupid. And there's a slight girl boss kind of girlfriend in it who is far more competent and intelligent than Mickey, the main character, and she kind of saves him in the end as well. And there's very few people to like. Even those characters that are supposedly, smarter, they're not likable characters, and everyone else are really, big idiots, absolute retards, and barely anyone has a kind of moral center for you to care about. And I'll talk about Mark Ruffalo's character a bit more, because there's some things to unpack with that character alone. And so you don't really care if the humans survive or colonize the planet or anything like that. And the film kind of wants you to root for the aliens more than the humans. And it tries to make the aliens out to be more moral than the humans. Because, humans bad, we're just terrible, a terrible species, full of colonizers and everything like that. But of course, the humans don't really learn from their mistakes. They're still going to forcefully colonize the planet. They don't address the, potential issues about, there's already an intelligent species on the planet, or anything like that. And so the film is very lost in its message that it's trying to give, where by the end, you don't give a crap. Everyone could have died, and I would have been like, all right, okay. I didn't care about anything by the end of it, didn't care about the main characters. The film felt mostly pointless, and that's just if you were to gauge it on its own merits. Then you throw in some of the other bullcrap things like Mark Ruffalo's character, which just makes it a very unpleasant experience overall. Now, Mark Ruffalo's character, is he a Trump parody, or is he not? Oh yeah, most definitely he is. And so He is a populist politician that failed in the election. You can tell this movie was written before the results of a certain election, right? And decides to take all his supporters on a spaceship to colonize another planet. And his supporters are wearing distinctly red hats. And they love him. They worship him. Like, the depiction of Mark Ruffalo's character is absolutely what the woke left perceive the MAGA movement to be, all right? And, of course, the MAGA movement, Trump supporters, they're nothing like this. But that's what, people like Mark Ruffalo do believe them to be. And they're a bunch of deranged morons in the film. Yeah, that's who they think, certain supporters are, distinctly wearing red hats. And there's no redeeming qualities in their candidate. Again, this is a parody of what they think, Trump is. And so the character is absolutely, irredeemably stupid, but everyone just loves him. He even does, the camera cuts away just as he starts to do a Trump dance. I'm not kidding, where both hands up and he starts to do this, and then it just as he begins it cuts away, but it's absolutely friggin' there, okay? Oh, and then Mark Ruffalo's also, he's distinctly more tanned than usual. There's a bit of an orange sheen on his face, especially in, the formal dinner. You can really tell that there. Oh, and he's also, a racist. He wants to breed a pure human race that's perfect, that doesn't have any, genetic contaminants or microchips in the, the fertilization or something like that. He even says, this beautiful white planet, because the planet's covered in snow, but he distinctly says, this planet is good because it's white. Have I given enough evidence that this is absolutely a parody of what they perceive Trump to be? It's this, racist, white supremacist, fascistic, retarded character that Mark Ruffalo is playing and trying to ham up as much as possible. And here is the thing, right? It undermines the whole film, because the reality is not like that, okay? Trump isn't a fascist. The MAGA people who support him are not insane, deranged people that will just support a moron no matter what. That is all just nonsense, but that's what they want to depict in the film, which undermines it completely because it is so divorced from reality. No one would be supporting this retard. He is an actual bona fide brain-dead moron, okay, who can't even think for himself and constantly needs to be fed lines and all this stuff, and is a legitimate horrible person and stuff. And the fact that you can tell so clearly who they're trying to, pretend to be, just rips you out of the film. And because that question is no one would actually be following this retard at all. Okay, but he has a devoted following. Oh, and is distinctly religious. They don't say Christian, but they make an absolute mockery of religion and Christianity in this, because that's where a lot of his supporter base is coming from. Are you seeing a lot of other connections in this film, right? And a lot of, the things that determine his certain choices and policy decisions are fueled by religious kind of practices and belief. And it's just there to be made a mockery of. This is a very woke piece of crap of a film that was clearly developed, before a lot of the rejection of the woke stuff has happened, and before the, election of Trump. And this film, had to be spat out as it was, but they didn't look like they tried to tone back any of the not so subtle, messaging and parodies of what they're forcing into this film. And remember, a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, Mark Ruffalo's character, is a tangential element. He's the main antagonist, right? But the core of the story is supposed to be about Mickey and the concept behind him being reprinted, and his duplicates, and how he comes to terms with it. And then how there's this side plot of them supposedly saving the colony ship from aliens, even though the aliens are kind of in the right, because all the humans are absolute scumbags and they kind of deserve to die. And so you don't really care about Mickey saving the colony, because they're all irredeemable morons with no moral compass or anything like that, are happy to murder, and kill. And when I say murder, they don't see it as murder because it's just duplicates and everything like that. But there is this attempt at dark comedy where people just don't care about, consequence and stuff like that. But none of it is funny. I didn't laugh a single time throughout this entire film, okay? And so the dark comedy misses completely, and it just ends up as being, everyone being depicted as assholes that you don't care about. And then, the aliens are kind of, threatening to destroy the colony, and Mickey needs to save them now. And it's like, who gives a crap? And I don't particularly give a crap about the aliens either, because it's hard to kind of sympathize and identify with aliens, even though they act more intelligent and normal than the humans do. And so as a result, this film is a mess, a complete convoluted piece of crap of a mess, which might have been good. It might have, it had potential because there was an interesting enough concept, and if they were able to nail the dark comedy, and Robert Pattinson is a good actor, he could have pulled something off here, but everything is let down in the film. The script, the side characters, the plots, it just falls flat and is a pointless film that you don't give a crap about by the end. And so my overall rating of Mickey 17 would be maybe 3 out of 10, around there. Like 2 out of... So I'm trying to think of any redeeming things. There's something I found interesting in the film, but they don't explore it or elaborate on it, and it's not really a credit to the film. I just appreciated that all these kind of, it's human printed copies of Mickey when he dies, right? So are they clones? Are they not? They're just kind of like, human printed things with his memories, right? Actually, it's revealed they have different personalities, and I was like, only someone like me might find that interesting, because from my own religious background, I would believe that a different soul is put into every single copy that's spat out. And even if you're given the same memories of that individual, same likes and dislikes, everything like that, I personally think that the soul would actually still have an individual identity that would begin to manifest, even if it was founded on the the exact same memories and DNA of this person, which is actually what happens in the film. They have, you find out the copies have distinct personalities, and Mickey 18, the one that gets reprinted and duplicated, is a psychopath, is actually a bit of a psychopath, and Mickey 17 is this whimpering, weak, indecisive guy, and that's the main character we're supposed to sympathize with, by the way. And so Mickey 17 is not a dynamic or interesting character, and is not particularly a nice guy. He's just an average Joe who's an idiot, and doesn't really have anything going for him. And Mickey 18 is a psychopathic murderer that, you're happy to see die by the end. Oh yeah, spoilers, but I don't think you really care if you've come this far in the film. And so the film isn't really worth me giving a chronological breakdown, because it doesn't deserve it. There's no point. It doesn't deserve your time. I do not recommend it. And Mark Ruffalo is utterly insufferable. Stay on watch.